What you are going to see now is Rabbi Glazerson showing Richard Shaw in the documentary Into Darkness, first while getting it in Amazon. This is a part of it, an amazing discovery of Rabbi Glazerson with the addition of Professor Eliyahu Rips about the murder of these three boys. The murderer, Aruri, the cursed one, Baruch Hashem, bless God, was removed from this world with the other wild beasts and the Nazis. So let us see now, unbelievable. This is a small piece of it, but it's worthwhile getting all this documentary of Richard Shaw, Pinlight, which is amazing done.
Are often considered more than mere chance. The final results are often stunning and unexplainable.
And this was prior to the big Hamas war that happened in 2014, where these boys were kidnapped and murdered. So you thought you would look up a table about the three boys, but what you discovered was just so amazing that we call it the Access keyword is the first one that you put up to see. Show us how you do that.
So what we know that those children, those boys were killed on the year 774. Yeah, what you see here the following. You see here the Hebrew words Mot Ne'arim. Mot Ne'arim is the death of the boys. So now you can see here clearly the year Tafshin Ayin Dalet 774, and in it you see Hamas. See here I write the word Mechabel. In Hebrew means terrorist. Mechabel. You can see it down here, Mechabel. And then again I give the command to look for it in the table. So I have here also, I have here 28 times Mechabel, but I'm interested in the minimal. 28. But I want the minimal one. And what is the minimal one?
-4?
4, yeah. So altogether you have in this part terrorists of Hamas in the year Tafshin Dalet caused death to the boys. And then Professor Rips, looking into this table, he found the place, the area, the district where the boys were found buried. It was a field belonged to somebody, and the area where he found it was in Hebron, but it was a small part in Hebron which was called Herbet Arnav.
The table was sent to all the professors and rabbis for further study, and several new tables were created. This table, which was a collaborative effort, had all the most important keywords about the kidnapping of the three boys. But Professor Herelick was concerned that the probability factor and compactness of the words might be improved, so he created another table from scratch, which we're seeing here. Professor Rips, perhaps the one most responsible for moving the science of the Torah codes into reality, then worked on his own set of tables. As usual, his findings were impressive, with even more information grouped into parallel lines, making it more unlikely this table could be duplicated in any text other than the Torah. It also contained a new phrase, "Killed my people," at the top of the page.
And then today, soldiers found the bodies of 16-year-old Naftali Frankel, the American, and his two teenaged friends, Gilad Sha'ar, 16, and El Yifrak, 19. The three had been hitchhiking home near the West Bank city of Hebron late at night and were never heard from again.
I think the codes have a lot to say about this new reality, which in fact is not so new because the codes were given to us, the Torah was given to us over 3,000 years ago. But now, in our generation, we're waking up to this gift that we received.
That there seems to be technology intertwined with the Torah.
In our generation, we need the technology in order to unlock the secrets in the Torah through this method of Torah codes.
If somebody produces a table and says, "Oh, this is an amazing table. Look how interesting it is," and he points to a couple of ELSs on the table, and they say, "Oh, look it's on the table, and look how interesting it is. It's predicting some gloomy event someplace Okay, that is really a significant event, a big event, and somebody could ask, well, this is very interesting, the work that you've done, but maybe if I went to a novel that is just as good in the way it looks as your table, why should I think that your table is interesting? It's just a random thing that happened, and you used by interacting with a computer application, a program, and if that table can be produced, a similar kind of table using some Hebrew text that has nothing to do with any religious tradition, then it surely is the case that your table is really not interesting. It was just a random event. So how do you counter that kind of an argument? And indeed it's the case. You give me any keywords you want, and I go to a book that's in that language, that is sufficiently long, sufficiently large number of pages,
Right.
and I'll produce a table that has ELSs of those keywords that you suggested.
Sure.
So how do I know that what is going on is really interesting? So now there's a key concept, and this concept is employed by code breakers in all of the equivalent places like our National Security Agency. You do an experiment, and it must be done in an a priori manner. You lay out what your keywords are, you lay out all the parameters necessary, and we see it here and say, oh, we have another keyword. Hey, that's not a priori. You found it by snooping, looking
Right.
at the table. If the Torah text and all the monkey texts were 1 million texts total, and we found that 10 texts had a number as good or smaller than the Torah text, then the probability that the event we observed on the Torah text, the probability that it would happen by chance, is 10 divided by 1 million. 1 out of 100,000.
And so, can you run 1 million other texts at a time in the Monte Carlo experiment?
Yes. Yeah, we can run. It just takes, it's not,
Yeah.
it doesn't happen in 3 seconds.
Right.
Maybe it takes some hours to do.
Do you link a bunch of computers together and network them in order to get more power to do that?
We have programs that will run on a Cray machine, a supercomputer, and can utilize many, many cores. If we need to, we can do that.
So I asked Professor Haralick if as an experiment he would run some tables based on the keywords in Professor Ripp's well-noted Twin Towers table, and do it using monkey texts that were non-encoded. So he did. The results showed how the Torah text was well ordered, and that while the other texts had the same keywords, the resultant codes were completely insignificant and required thousands of letters, while the one Professor Rips found came up entirely in chapter 20 of the Book of Numbers.
Again, they're showing that this outside agency is able to construct the first 5 books of the Bible, i.e. the Torah, in such a way that there are codes within messages which sometimes overlay the plain text, which is just astounding when that happens. When someone does a code and all of a sudden the answers come right over the plain text, which of course is very apropos to what the question was. So you've got the plain text, which, let's say, one of my favorites is 3,000 died that day, and the Twin Towers, that whole matrix and the code was profound. And the Torah code seemingly is calling out the amount of people who perished that day before the body count was actually tallied up.
During the BP oil disaster in 2010, a table was discovered with the keywords oil well, leaking, and the date, all found over the plain text. The fountains of the deep were broken up from the book of Genesis.
Time-space displacement, and time-space as we know it is really an illusion. We're stuck in space-time, but the God of the Bible dwells outside of space-time.
In 2008, I met with Professor Rips to see what the Torah codes might say about the year 2012.
Nearby you have brutal, which means cancelled,
and in the plain text will say, "Lo yeh," will not be on it. Will not be. This is Exodus chapter 16, verse 26. Actually, it says they are planned because cancelled means that something was designed to happen, and then for some reason it is cancelled and will not happen. So this just points exactly to this point that we are discussing, that if we even see some that might be very clear indication, still it could be reversed by the additional events or additional commentaries that we have here. So this is something that one have to bear clear in the mind. Otherwise, this will lead to major confusion and misunderstanding.
When you discover that people are talking about some major topic, and then you look for key words in a Torah code experiment, and you find it, it doesn't mean that that is going to happen in the future. It means that people are talking about it. Those key words, attack, Twin Towers, airplane, were in the topic sentence of headlines in newspapers all around the world, in fact. People were talking about the event.
After all of these tables that you've done, and there are almost 2,000 of them now that you've done, and you publish them on YouTube. But do you see a pattern emerging? Do you see something happening in the Torah codes now that you've done so many of them?
Yeah, I can see so clearly that the Torah was a blueprint of creation.
A lot of people, when you talk about the Torah codes, or what they used to be called the Bible code, and the only reason I don't like to call it that is because I don't believe that there is a code all the way through the Bible, because to me that doesn't make sense. There's so many different books in the Bible, and they're written in different languages, but the Torah is really unique, and this is the first 5 books of the Old Testament are the only books like that. So to me it only makes sense.
Exactly the proper Hebrew words. So you cannot put what you like, because like in this table we did today, you cannot put different than Hamas, because Hamas is Hamas. You cannot put different words than terror, Mechabel,
Well, that's your specialty, to know ancient Hebrew.
You must have the proper Hebrew,
Right.
Otherwise you can put what suits you, you see. So the first thing, this is clear, that every word which was used, is proper Hebrew.
Some of the words here popped out were surprises. We didn't know in advance what we were going to look for. And that's an all-important statistical factor that can mean a difference between 1,000,000 to 1 and ordinary. So to what we found was that there's a repetition going on. So that when we find a code that looks interesting, we don't yet say that it's statistically significant. We can't say that. But we've been given permission to use those same words again.
In an a priori sense.
And then it becomes a priori.
Yeah.
So then when those same words again appear somewhere else, it's a completely a priori experiment, and the result is...
Because the phrase has already revealed itself.
Right.
Amazingly, you can see comes here from Hamas and the tunnels. Unbelievable. Then, boom, the Hamas, like exactly telling us that those tunnels, as we found today, are from the Hamas, and those are the real enemies of Israel, as we see so clearly today. And what is interesting that all of it comes in the book Deuteronomy, you can see here, and in one chapter, which is so amazing and definitely clearly showing the truth of the Bible code.
And there are almost almost 2,000 of them now that you've done, and you publish them on YouTube.
YouTube, yeah.
But do you see a pattern emerging? Do you see something happening in the Torah codes now that you've done so many of them?
I can see so clearly that the Torah was a blueprint of creation.
A lot of people, when you talk about the Torah codes or what they used to be called the Bible code, and the only reason I don't like to call it that is because I don't believe that there is a code all the way through the Bible, because to me that doesn't make sense. There's so many different books in the Bible, and they were written in different languages, but the Torah is really unique, and this is the first 5 books of the Old Testament are the only books like that. So to me it only makes sense.
Exactly the proper Hebrew words. So you cannot put what you like, because like in this table we did today, you cannot put different than Hamas, because Hamas is Hamas. You cannot put different word than terror or mechabel,
Well, that's your specialty, to know ancient Hebrew.
You must have the proper Hebrew,
Right.
Otherwise you can put what suits you, you see. So the first thing, this is clear, that every word which was used, is proper Hebrew.
Some of the words here popped out were surprises. We didn't know in advance what we were going to look for.